Although this is not a design class, I've always found that my students do a little better on certain projects if they have some idea of what constitutes good design. When you start your project, it's a good idea to take a piece of paper and make some thumbnails, some roughs, and then to proceed to a comprehensive layout. When you're sitting with your client, it's a good idea to rough out on a sheet of paper the ideas that they're communicating to you so that you know that you're on the same page. Part of your comprehensive layout should be exploring appropriate type design. So you should look through your type that's available to you and see which typefaces fit the feeling that you are trying to give. And keep in mind too that you're going to have to fit the copy to be in the space, and it has to be readable. Now there is different type of art that you may want to use for your project. There's line art, which is usually just black and white art that doesn't have any gradients to it. The other would be black and white art, which has continuous tones, and that would have gradients in it. This would be photographs or even shaded drawings. Another thing you might think about is colored continuous tone that include cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. When you go to print these, you would use 4 screens for color separation. And just to let you know that halftones are measured in lines per inch. When you get your artwork, particularly photographs or art that someone gives you or that you create yourself, remember you may have to crop these to make them fit or to give a better composition, and you might have to scale them also. So please keep these in mind. One of the things you want to do with your piece is to create a focus. Remember that contrasting sizes, the density of certain objects or type, how you position the elements, how you offset them, and the interest that you create for your design will make it either successful or not. One of the things you should consider in your design is unity. The way you can create that is through color, by having, for example, headings or a certain color theme run through a piece, by using lines and boxes and circles and arrows to bring the eye to a particular area that you want the person to see, and by positioning elements in a way that brings the eye where you want it. In the Western world, we do read from left to right, and so the positioning of elements is very important. Another principle of design is emphasis. If you want people to notice certain things, you have to emphasize it. And you can do this through using size, color, arrows, and labels. The next principle is balance. Basically, in the simplest form, you have 2 types of design, formal and informal. In the formal design, everything that is on one side of the paper is repeated, balanced on the other side. For example, if you took a piece of paper and folded it in half and you were creating a design, whatever would be on one side, you would repeat on the other side. Not necessarily with the same information, but with the same weight. For example, type of the same weight or photographs of the same weight. The informal design is asymmetrical, and what balances it is empty white space or the lack of any elements. And this is a little more tricky to pull off for beginners. The principle of good design is proportion. And I would say that beginners working this is the most difficult thing for them to do. Now, if you look at the top um, little drawing, there is an even amount of space between the rectangles. This creates good proportion. And you can see around the edges of the rectangles that there's the same amount of space. When there isn't, it makes the person who's looking at it feel uncomfortable. They know they want to change something, but they don't know quite what. And this will keep away from the message. And this is the most serious problem that new people who are doing graphics on the computer in Illustrator do. So please mind your proportion. The next principle of good design is movement. You want to make sure that you put your objects in such a way that there is free movement along your document. For example, in the Western society, it's culturally popular for us to read from left to right and then we zigzag back. You can use this natural tendency of the Western culture to put your objects in such a way that that's the way they become read. So you want to make sure that the movement of your object takes you where you want them to be. And the last principle of good design is simplicity. Mies van der Rohe said that less is more. And so when you keep things simple, then people aren't looking all over for their information. I always find that websites that are the most simple, for example, Google's website, it's so simple. You know right where to go. You aren't searching all over the place for information. And so whether it's a printed piece or a web page or a badge, you want to keep it simple. So remember, the cardinal rules of design is keep it simple. Less is more, and remember, white space or the lack of anything is a design element also.